voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
As the World Food Programme called for long-term ceasefire to avert famine and a collapse of the main services in Gaza, the Israeli occupation has pursued its bombardments of the territory, claiming over 130 lives. And the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his gratitude to the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, which has completed its withdrawal from the country. And Djibouti has announced that it will host next week a meeting on the situation in Sudan amid a conflict between the regular army and the rapid support forces since mid-April. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has affirmed that the project of the 5 desalination stations of CEO Water now being implemented as part of the strategic plan initiated by the public authority and will be completed on time. On July 5th, as part of the strategic plan aiming to generalize the creation of desalination stations of CEO Water all along the Algerian coastline, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, laid the foundation stone of the so-called Fouka 2 desalination station project in the province of Tipaza. The state aims by creating new desalination stations, each of a capacity of 300,000 meters per day, to satisfy the needs in drinking water of the inhabitants of the coastline provinces and to reach the water security objective. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has stressed that the implementation of the stations was carried out according to plan. He announced that the Fouka 2 station project would be completed by the end of 2024. And now more news with Mariam Barshi.
As the World Food Programme called for a long-term ceasefire to avert famine and a collapse of the main services in Gaza, the Israeli army has pursued its bombardment of the territory, claiming over 130 lives. The news agency Wafa stressed that a former minister of the Palestinian Authority was today killed in the Israeli airstrike which hit his house in the Gaza Strip. According to Palestinian sources, scores of people were killed and wounded in the Israeli bombardments that hit the southern town of Rafah, as well as the refugee camps of Nusayrat and Maghazi in the central part of Gaza. The Israeli military operation launched on Gaza over 2 months ago has killed so far more than 21,800 people, mainly women and children. In this respect, the World Food Programme warned that millions of people were threatened by famine and advocated a long-term ceasefire and an unhindered access to humanitarian aid. In a similar move, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres once again called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to allow for the delivery of aid. This came as the World Health Organization warned that there was an increasing threat for propagation of diseases among the population. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, several Palestinians were wounded in incidents that erupted after the Israeli occupying forces stormed a municipality in southwest of Hebron. Several other Palestinians were arrested during the incident. Back to you, Essia.
The High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, has called for another truce in Gaza. The EU diplomacy chief stressed that the Israeli aggression in the besieged enclave keeps causing heavy losses, stressing that the bombings on the refugee camps of Maghazi were the deadliest. He added that the displacement of more than 150,000 more people has been reported, which makes a new truce urgent. Let's recall that on November 24, 1 week humanitarian pause came into effect in Gaza, during which an exchange of prisoners took place between the Palestinian Hamas resistance and the Israeli occupation. Helicopters of the U.S. Navy forces have targeted 3 boats of the Yemeni Houthis, claiming that the latter have attacked a container ship in the Red Sea. The American Navy forces targeted the Houthi boats, which led to the sinking of the boats and the death of their crews. The U.S. Navy said that it received an assistance request from the container ship owned by Denmark, which reported having been attacked twice in 24 hours while sailing in the Red Sea, as the U.S. put it. The Houthis, however, said repeatedly that they only target Israeli container ships and ships that are heading to the Israeli occupation in support for Palestinians in Gaza who are subjected to a massacre carried out by the Israeli occupation. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his gratitude to the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, which has completed its withdrawal from the country. The Secretary General highlighted the major role played by the multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali in strengthening the peace process. Antonio Guterres stated that the mission had contributed to ensuring that the ceasefire be respected as part of the 2015 Peace and Reconciliation Agreement resulting from the Algiers process, as well as supporting the transition to the restoration of the state authority. The UN Secretary General paid tribute to the 311 MINUSMA staff who lost their lives and more than 700 who were injured. He also expressed his gratitude to the UN mission personnel and more particularly the head of the mission. And now other details with Mariam Barshi, who is with me in the studio.
Two international humanitarian organizations have announced the suspension of their operations in the Sudanese state of Al Jazeera, scene of an escalation of the conflict between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Rebel Forces. The World Food Programme and Doctors Without Borders organization said they were forced to suspend the distribution of aid in the Sudanese state of Al Jazeera, where a warehouse containing enough supplies to feed 1.5 million people for a month was looted. The Doctors Without Borders organization said that armed men attacked its compound in Wed Medani, the capital of Al Jazeera state, on December 19th, stealing 2 cars and other supplies. The organization said that due to the deterioration of the security situation, they decided to suspend all medical activities in Wed Medani and evacuate their staff to safer areas in Sudan and neighboring countries. According to the International Organization for Migration, the situation in Wed Medani has pushed up to 300,000 inhabitants to flee the region. The war between the army and the Rapid Support Rebel Forces in Sudan broke out in mid-April amidst tension linked to the transition period. Back to you, Asia.
And Djibouti has announced that it will host next week a meeting on the situation in Sudan amid a conflict between the regular army and the Rapid Support Rebel Forces since mid-April. The Djiboutian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mahmoud Ali Youssef, has said on the X platform that next week Djibouti, in its capacity as head of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in East Africa, will pave the way for Sudanese dialogue and will organize a crucial meeting without further details. Since last April, the Sudanese army and Rapid Support Rebel Forces have been waging a war, killing 12,000 people and displacing more than 6 million others. Let's know that the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in East Africa is an African sub-regional government organization founded in 1996 and headquartered in Djibouti. Still in Africa, in Niger, at least 11 civilians have been killed in an attack carried out by armed men in the western region on the border with Burkina Faso. The army said that terrorists riding motorcycles attacked 2 villages located in the region's southeastern part. Let's recall that Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso have decided to mobilize their forces to fight terrorism along their common borders. In Burkina Faso, over 40 terrorists were killed in an offensive recently carried out by the governmental forces in the western, the north, central and southwestern parts of the country. Army sources were quoted by the Burkina TV and radio as saying that 3 terrorists held bases were destroyed and equipment were seized during the operation. The terrorists were accused of planning attacks against civilians, notably in the country's north-central regions. And 14 people have been killed during clashes between the Congolese forces and the Allied Democratic Rebel Forces in northeastern territory of Mambasa in Democratic Republic of Congo. The villages of Mambo and Kawame were attacked by the ADF coming from Mabo in the North Kivu region bordering Rwanda. Local sources said 4 rebel forces were killed and weapons were seized by the Congolese forces. Now, back to you, Mariam Barshi.
Russia says it has targeted Ukrainian military sites in the capital of Kyiv and Kharkiv in a new wave of drone and missiles attacks in days, in retaliation for a deadly attack a day earlier on the city of Belgorod. The Russian Defense Ministry announced that Russian forces have struck decision-making centers and military installation in the northeastern city of Kharkiv after Kyiv said the residential buildings and hotels and cafes have been hit. In the first wave of overnight attacks, at least 6 missiles hit Kharkiv, Ukraine's national police said, injuring at least 22 people and hitting 12 apartment buildings, 13 residential houses and a kindergarten. Russia accused Ukraine of carrying out a terrorist attack on civilians in the city of Belgorod, including using controversial cluster munitions in strikes that killed at least 22 people and wounded dozens more. For his part, the governor of Belgorod region called residents of the city of Belgorod to heat in shelters as a missile threat alert was issued in the city. Back to you, Asia.
That's it for our news bulletin. Now the headlines. As the World Food Programme called for long-term ceasefire to avert famine and a collapse of the main services in Gaza, the Israeli occupation has pursued its bombardments of the territory, claiming over 130 lives. And the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his gratitude to the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, which has completed its withdrawal from the country. And Djibouti has announced that it will host next week a meeting on the situation in Sudan amid a conflict between the regular army and the rapid support forces since mid-April. 14 hours 41 minutes, Algiers time. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. And the sector of startups in Algeria has been marked by a significant evolution in 2023 thanks to support and incentive measures as well as legislative texts which gave an unprecedented boost to entrepreneurship based on knowledge and innovation. Mohamed Khatel tells us more.
In order to encourage young people to embark on an entrepreneurial journey, sometimes even before they graduate from university, a ministerial department dedicated to entrepreneurship was created in 2020 by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. The Ministry of Knowledge, Economy and Startups, which was merged with that of micro-enterprises in September 2022, has continued to develop the startup ecosystem, thus reinforcing the vision of its initiator. Thanks to these measures, Algeria has upgraded its position in the African continent in the field of startups under the aegis of the President of the Republic, in addition to the great interest attached by the public authorities to the creation of a national ecosystem for startups. The success story of startups in Algeria is the result of strong and significant decisions adopted by the government under the supervision of President Tebboune, who is keen to ensure the success of this project to promote the knowledge economy. The President of the Republic welcomed the dynamic experienced by the higher education system aimed at encouraging students to create their own startups and projects and ordered continued coordination at this level. His instructions resulted in the creation of 84 Entrepreneurship Development Centers, or CDE, throughout the national territory and the granting of 1,200 offices to student entrepreneurs as a space to host the startups they created. Besides, the capital of the Algerian Startups Fund, ASF, was increased and the Algerian Innovation Fund was created in collaboration with foreign investment funds. Algeria's successful model inspired African countries on the occasion of the organization of the first 2 editions of the African Startup Conference 2022 and 2023 respectively in Algeria, giving rise to the adoption of a roadmap for the strengthening of the startup ecosystem in Africa, as well as the adoption of the first Algiers Declaration in 2022 for the development of startups in the continent by the African Union.
14 hours to 43 minutes. Algiers time is listening to Radio Algeria International, and now artificial intelligence, or AI, stands as one of today's rapidly advancing technologies, leading to numerous applications and projects enhancing convenience, productivity, efficiency, but also threats. Miriam Bershi tells us more in this program that will be followed by a roundup of the major economic events that marked the year 2023 by Saïd Bouazi.
Artificial intelligence is defined as the ability of a digital computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks associated with intelligent beings. Nowadays, some limited artificial intelligence applications, such as medical diagnosis, computer search engines, voice or handwriting recognition, and chatbots, have evolved to the point where some programs can perform at the same levels as human experts and professionals. AI systems typically function by absorbing large quantities of labeled training data, examining the data for correlations and patterns, and using these patterns to forecast future states. Artificial intelligence can be used by employees to handle repetitive, low-skilled jobs, saving hours of labor. Even though machines have been previously used on production lines, artificial intelligence enables to manage a wide range of jobs more effectively than in the past. Every business benefits from this. Businesses save money by using technology to handle routine chores rather than hiring people. It even reduces non-compliance fees and operating costs. Artificial intelligence is applied in many sectors, from digital marketing to healthcare. Depending on the activity, the kind of level of AI required will vary. For example, automating emails will require less processing power than going through a registry of patient information. AI is used not only for sorting information, but also for academic research and facial recognition. In addition, devices using AI are also used outside of the work sphere. Smart devices using AI can lower electricity costs and facilitate easier household management. Artificial intelligence was limited to sci-fi literature, video games, and motion pictures just a few years ago. Despite being commonplace, some argue that it is not even close to attaining its full potential yet. However, many fear that the use of AI will result in job losses. Experts reported that this is happening at a small scale. A common example could be the self-checkouts in shops or supermarkets. This is one simple example of how AI is replacing human tasks while simultaneously taking away job opportunities. Moreover, there is an urgent need to address the issue of the lack of transparency in AI systems, especially with deep learning models that can be challenging to understand. People may become distrustful of AI systems and reject their adoption if they are unable to understand how they arrive at their findings. Another issue that should be addressed is the amplification of social biases that AI systems perpetuate due to biased training data and algorithmic design. Introducing moral and ethical values in AI systems is challenging, especially when those systems are making decisions that could have major consequences. Researchers and developers must prioritize the ethical implications of AI technologies. AI technologies also present privacy concerns, as large volumes of personal data are frequently collected and analyzed by AI systems, which raises concern about data security and privacy. In order to reduce privacy risks, data protection laws and secure data management procedures must be advocated. Regarding security risks, it has been reported that as AI technologies advance in sophistications, security risks and possibilities for abuse that come with using them increase as well. By using AI, malicious actors and hackers can create sophisticated cyber attacks, bypass security measures, and take advantage of weaknesses in systems. The UN Under-Secretary General for Global Communication, Melissa Fleming, stressed that AI has been used already on social media to circulate disinformation and hate speech, which threatens human progress. Deepfakes and other AI-generated content are used to manipulate public opinion and share misleading information. In the digital age, efforts to identify and counteract misinformation produced by AI are essential to maintaining the integrity of information. To that, Mrs. Fleming added the following.
Disinformation actors take advantage of algorithms that are designed to prioritize outrage and user engagement. They are programmed to amplify the posts that generate outrage and often result in promoting hate speech. By design, they at the same time limit the reach of factual, reliable information, including from the United Nations. But large-scale disinformation operations have had their own limits. Up until recently, they required significant investment in content creation. They needed manpower and a big, broad influencer network. But with the advent of generative AI technology, the cost and manpower barriers have been lifted. This means the online environment is about to get even worse.
Besides, Melissa Fleming recalled that it is challenging to detect whether content is AI generated or real. She added that the UN is concerned by the following.
Targeted disinformation is already impacting UN peace and security efforts, and in many parts of the world, UN peace, humanitarian, and political operations are the subject of false narratives. This endangers UN staff and also the civilians they are tasked with aiding and protecting. I would like to recall a recent survey of our peacekeepers where more than 70% who responded to the survey said that mis and disinformation severely or critically affected their ability to implement their mandates. 70%. And this is the landscape that they're already operating in. Now, enter cheap, off-the-shelf AI services, and targeted disinformation is becoming an even more potent weapon in the information wars. Those working to keep the peace, to deliver humanitarian aid, and to report on atrocities are becoming targets themselves of twisted stories. And this can undermine their missions by turning populations and donors against them.
Concern over the use of AI-driven autonomous weaponry by non-state or rogue states are also raised by the development of this technology, particularly by the possible loss of human control over crucial decision-making processes. Governments and organizations must create international standards and laws that guard against AI security issues in order to reduce these security hazards, especially as the risk of states getting into AI weapons race could lead to the development of AI technology with dangerous effects. For instance, researchers and leaders stress that intelligence labs must pause the development of AI systems. Furthermore, as artificial intelligence continues to integrate into various aspects of daily life, the ethical dilemmas surrounding its implementation and usage are becoming increasingly pertinent. One of the pressing concerns is the accountability of AI-driven decisions. When AI systems make critical decisions, it is often challenging to pinpoint responsibility or assign accountability for the outcomes. The ambiguity in responsibility raises significant ethical questions, particularly in contexts such as healthcare, finance, and law enforcement, where AI-powered decisions can profoundly impact individuals' lives. Establishing frameworks for transparent accountability and clear lines of responsibility within AI systems becomes imperative to ensure that decisions made by these systems are fair, justifiable, and aligned with ethical standards. By addressing the ethical and accountability concerns in AI systems, societies can better embrace the potential benefits of these technologies while mitigating their potential risks.
The guidelines laid down by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, at the last Council of Ministers meeting of 2022, namely working to increase gas production levels with a view to maintaining average national consumption on the one hand and strengthening exports on the other, in fulfillment of Algeria's commitment to its foreign partners, were achieved in 2023. 2023 is coming to an end with a wealth of achievements for the energy sector, including the conclusion of several agreements signed by the national energy company Sonatrach with international companies covering various areas related to hydrocarbons, confirming Sonatrach's role as a reliable supplier of energy. According to the National Agency for the Development of Hydrocarbon Resources, ALNAFT, Sonatrach signed during 2023 within the framework of the new law on hydrocarbons contracts with 6 global companies: Eni, Occidental Petroleum, Total Energies, Sinopec and Pertamina, while negotiations are underway with other major companies to conclude other contracts. Among the major agreements signed in 2023 are those between the Sonatrach Group and the Italian group Eni in Algiers on increasing gas supplies and reducing emissions. Bilateral strategic agreements were signed in the presence of President Tebboune and the President of the Italian Council of Ministers, Giorgia Meloni, who was visiting Algeria for the construction of a new gas pipeline to transport natural gas and, alternatively, hydrogen and blue and green ammonia, as well as the laying of an undersea electricity cable and the extension of natural gas liquefaction capacity. This is an extremely important project that will make Italy a hub for the distribution of energy products to Europe, said the President of the Republic, referring to the new gas pipeline project. In the field of marketing, major contracts for the delivery of gas were also signed in 2023. These include an agreement signed by Sonatrach with the Chinese company Wanhua Chemical for the supply of liquefied petroleum gas LPG to the Wanhua Petrochemical Complex in China. During the year, Sonatrach also signed a major agreement with the Turkish company Botas for the sale and purchase of liquefied natural gas LNG for the Turkish market for a period of 3 years. In addition, in July 2023, the national company completed its first delivery of LNG to Eni, the world leader in the supply of liquefied natural gas, at the new floating regasification terminal in Piombino, Italy, delivered by an LNG carrier owned by the subsidiary Hyproc, opening up the prospect of increasing gas volumes to this new terminal. 2023 also saw the resumption of Sonatrach's activities in Libya. In terms of discoveries, the company announced 10 new hydrocarbon discoveries in addition to 16 others achieved in 2022, confirming the country's significant oil and gas potential and the efforts made to explore and renew reserves. At the end of 2022, in the case of gas, President Tebboune stressed the need to increase the number of discoveries in order to raise the volume of exports from the current 53 billion cubic meters to nearly 100 billion cubic meters in the long term. In terms of export revenues, Algeria recorded at the end of September 2023 around $38 billion in export, according to government figures, to reach $48 billion by the end of the year. In addition, major energy infrastructure projects have been launched, including the Sidi Bel Abbas Fuel Storage and Distribution Center with a capacity of 180,000 cubic meters, ensuring fuel autonomy for 30 days for the country's western and southwestern regions. And in order to make a success of the energy transition, several projects were launched in 2023, including the launch of a call for tenders by the Sonelgaz Group for the production of 2,000 megawatts of photovoltaic solar electricity. The tender includes the construction of 15 solar power plants across 12 provinces with unit capacities ranging between 80 and 220 megawatts, in addition to the construction of facilities for connection to the electricity grid.